Hi everyone, this is Jaime Alejandro with the Arts Calling podcast featuring creatives in the literary, visual, and performing arts. Before we get rolling, I'd like to remind you to stop by artscalling.com for the latest episodes and links to our literary projects, including the Coalition Works Literary Journal and our Coalitionist newsletter, which is open for submissions right now. We have an awesome time over there, so I hope that you join us. We are creating short-form works focusing on the absurd and the smallest units of joy. Come have a blast with us. Now, here we go. Today, I'm delighted to be Arts Calling author A.M. Sosa. A.M. Sosa is a queer Mexican-American writer from Stockton, California, and a graduate of UC Irvine's MFA programs in writing, where they were awarded the 2022 Hanfield Prize. They have received support from Tin House, Community of Writers, and the Carolyn Moore Writing Residency. Their debut novel, And I'll Take Out Your Eyes, is being published by Algonquin, and their fiction has been published in Sissiva and the Santa Monica Review. Our conversation today, of course, focuses on their new novel, And I'll Take Out Your Eyes, which is a kaleidoscopic exploration of the power of memory and the curses we inherit from our family, and how to overcome them. This was an amazing chat with an amazing writer, and I know you'll love this one as well. So, without further delay, let's give AM a call. Hey, good morning, AM. Thanks so much for taking the time. How are you?
I'm doing well, and how are you?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, trying to not get too worked up about the cold that's coming, but let's kind of get the ball rolling here. I'm curious to know where you are and sort of how are you feeling now that this book has been out in the world for about a month or so?
Yeah, I'm currently in Stockton. Um, I guess I had a lot of anticipation or just not knowing what really to expect and anxiety. And now that it's out, um, I guess just like a lot of relief. Just feeling like whatever will happen will be I don't know, something like that. I still don't know really what so much to expect or but I feel mostly like neutral to positive most days.
So, how long did you work on this piece of writing? What kind of cycle did it have in terms of developing and getting it to this point that actually got to publication? Was it a very quick thing for you, or was this something that you were developing or pondering about for a long time?
For sure it's been a long kind of journey. The first actual writing of it has been about 8 years. I The first story that I wrote that made it into the novel. It was like my last during my last year in undergrad, which that was like 2017, I want to
Mm,
say.
yeah.
God, it's been a fucking while. Um, and it has been, and for sure, like my time in undergrad was like a big kind of influence in terms of kind of turning my ideas about what I wanted to focus on in terms of like what I saw what was possible in writing stories. It opened I was an English major in undergrad, and I took this class on contemporary literature, and that was the first time that I really got to see the kinds of lives that felt familiar to me in a way that like literature always felt pretty kind of foreign or distant in a way that like movies never did. You know, like I grew up watching a lot of movies. I watched a lot of gangster movies that I really understood, but they also terrified the fuck out of me. Um,
Like what? What kind of movie?
and
Would you say you watched? Was it what was an ideal movie growing up?
um, one, do you know 187?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was a big one for me. Yeah, it was Samuel L.
that's
Jackson.
right. Do you
And
what?
just, I mean,
Why do you think they scared the fuck out
go,
of you? What was the thing that I don't know that you felt drawn to, but also maybe repelled by a little bit?
yeah, yeah. It felt kind of, I guess, and as I got older, like this was not so much the case, but like especially when I was younger and like living in this kind of neighborhood, the neighborhoods that I saw in these movies, where it felt inevitable, like that was going to be my life trajectory, that was going to be how my life was going to go. Um, and it also like it for sure didn't help. I think that in these movies, like 187, where they're like the teenagers, they're like these grown ass men that are playing it, and it just also made it feel like they're even their physical presence felt so imposing, and that just like terrified me, and it just felt so. I guess also in terms of how I grew up, where it felt like, oh yeah, like all adults are scary, and all adults will do is kind of just are forces that you have to always be cautious around and always observant for that reason.
Right. There's so many things I want to ask you because I've just I'm almost done with the novel, and the first half of it I think you do a wonderful job of sort of setting up this idea that I think is a cultural one too. I want to talk about your community in Stockton as well, but the first thing that I'm thinking about here is just this notion of like how your parents sometimes or the adults in your life tend to kind of disrespect a child. And when you were setting up your story here in the novel, the novel of the character, not yours, of course, but
Yeah,
there was just
yeah,
this palpable feeling of like the child has no idea, the child has no autonomy, no voice. And I thought that was it was something that definitely resonated with me because I think I've seen it culturally, just a complete absolute dismissal in a way. And that was such a strong seed, I thought, to kind of begin setting up the many layers of the voice of this character. But maybe I'm curious if you could elaborate a little bit on that notion of feeling the distance, everyone at arm's length, and the dismissal, because I thought it was really well written and beautifully done in the book.
oh, thank you so much. And yeah, well, I really do appreciate like hearing that. Like that for sure was something that yeah, I guess like I really wanted to be kind of central and for it to resonate with people reading it. And um that felt so true to, yeah, to like how I grew up, to how I knew so many of my friends, cousins, growing up, where as a kid, yeah, I was like, no one pays attention to you, and if they do, it's just to mock you, to ridicule you, to cause you to have very low self-esteem. And yeah, and even like, and yeah, like going to Berkeley, this was such an eye-opening experience of getting to see and realizing like, oh, how kind of abnormal it was the way that I grew up, or how I guess in some ways, but I mean in other ways, I mean pretty normal to like
Sure.
people who I grew up around. But even in like that kind of context where it was so kind of plain, like so plain to see who the kids were, who were like so confident to raise their hands to talk to the professor. And like all through yeah, like my education, I guess like that I saw that like in and remembering back what it was like to grow up, yeah, it's like I didn't talk back because I was always kind of in fear, or like that thing of like, you as a child, you don't have anything to say, and the lack of agency. And that was also something else that like and now, like being a little bit older, uh there's these kinds of things that you are told in going through like a formal education, like a creative writing formal education, of like the workshop classes, or that like character has to have a certain amount of agency, and if they don't, like there's not really something there for uh the reader to really
Mm,
resonate with. But to me, it's like, but that felt so false to like,
mm.
that's not how some kids grow up. And like, that definitely was not how I grew up, where you really, yeah, you do feel enthralled to like, where if your parents want to go spend the day in, I don't know, like
It's
just
like we're going
running
to the
errands,
store,
like,
or we're gonna run a.
yeah, yeah. And even like, and even in terms of like, even like what you eat, like I hear all these stories of like people having trouble getting their kids to eat something. That's like, what are you talking about? It's like, you ate the fucking food that was put in front of you, or you didn't eat, and your parents was like,
Yeah,
there are no options. And like, I guess that's really what I wanted to in part get across, was that feeling of like, you have no options. Like,
right.
this is the way.
But this is wonderful to hear, because I do believe that you've tapped into this other layer of narrative tension where, yes, we need a protagonist to have this agency and propulsion, right? But there is a different kind of tension narratively when somebody is pushing against that kind of straitjacket of narrative where you're like, am I even telling my own story? And the way that you've unfolded this so far as I've read it is so powerful, because you're also playing with form in a way that kind of it's like informing us that this character is pushing and trying to get that foothold. So maybe we can talk about form as an experiment, form as a way to elevate that kind of narrative tension so that we can keep glued to the page like you've done so well here. I thought that was really lovely, and I have so many other questions, but maybe we can go there here just for the terms of the form and how that kind of allows you to play with conflict and tension and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I for sure was thinking about, and I guess like, because that was like for sure something that was on my mind as I was um writing it, was like how to present someone with agency, or like how does this person who on like the surface level doesn't really have so much agency, like how can that still come across? And the the POV shifts from like chapter to chapter for sure felt very like it opened up the possibility of that, where like in the opening chapter, there's others one there too, but like that opening chapter where it's in this second person future, to like really drill on that feeling of like, this is what's going to happen, like there's no changing it, you're gonna go through all of that. And then, but also, and which for sure like, and felt like true to me, like, and the more I was working on it, it's where like as a child, it feels so much easier sometimes to compartmentalize and to like get this kind of like these little moments of possibility, where you forget what's going on all around you, and you're just focused on the present moment, on what's like can bring you joy, happiness, like, like as a kid, like that's that was so much of what was important to me, was just like, I just want to have fun. And like, if I can forget like all this crazy shit happening around me, like that's what I'm going to do. And so like that to me, in terms of like some of the like the adolescent section, having first person where like it really felt like, okay, well now they're not really feeling so much the stranglehold of your parents aren't so much, you're starting to have different avenues for escape, for uh possibility. And so like really letting that kind of come through with this first person that is starting to really think more about like all the shit that has happened to him, but still, as like still being this teenager, is still so focused on having fun, getting high with his friends, just like
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
around. And that like that to me felt, yeah, just like the possibilities of making these POV shifts in order to tell the story of like, like obviously we're all so like multifaceted, and it just didn't feel right to me to kind of have the whole story told in one POV. Like it felt like it would be false to have it all in this kind of second person future. But it also felt false to me to have it all be in like first person present, or like it felt like to really kind of capture the kind of story that I wanted to tell, or in terms of how someone can try to see and understand their lack of agency, but also how they do have agency in all these ways. It felt necessary to have to, like in the crafting of it, to go into all of these narrative shifts.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I realize you're spot on, because it is narrative compartmentalization that somebody would logically do. But before we move further, I just realized we probably should have set up the actual book a little bit more. But
Yeah.
the idea here, the central conceit, and correct me if I'm wrong or add a little bit more as you see fit, but it's the story of about one person who is growing up bearing a curse, and you do some incredibly interesting things with the notion, the conceit of a curse. And maybe we could have you give us a lay of the land here of what this notion is of curses, how it plays a part in this character's journey. How do we get to go along with this as Christian continues to grow and find their place there?
Yeah, and to me, like I guess like the one of the things that I would add to that is just that like Christian has been cursed doubly, or like in multiple ways. And to me, like yeah, like so he's cursed by this aunt, but like I guess what is kind of more important to me, or in terms of that, it's where it's this adult instilling upon a child this notion of himself, and that like he can be defined um by means other than his own, like his own self, to make a definition of himself. and and that to me felt like the real kind of big curse of the whole novel, is that he starts to believe, and like so there's like this real kind of supernatural curse that the mother that the aunt instills upon him, this evil lie. But it's also, and you see it with, I think, the mom as well, but for sure, like definitely the father,
Yeah, yeah,
where he's kind of enthralled to these adult definitions of who he is, how he can be, yeah, like even kind of internalizing all of this uh, toxic masculinity, uh, that don't have a lot of space for, like, it's a lot of rigidity in terms of like how you can express yourself, how you can be. And so yeah, there's, I guess like that feels to me like the biggest thing. There's this curse that happens, and it just already kind of instills upon him something that he has already been feeling at 7 years old, from like the presence of his father, that um you can only be a certain way if you want to survive in this world, and you will have to mold yourself to it. um and all of the pain that causes someone when you don't feel free to express yourself. And that's like what's being tracked throughout the novel, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do feel that you do a wonderful job at it, because I think that's what's really palpable about the piece, especially, you know, understanding that culture. I think, as a Mexican person, I feel like I completely understand that headspace of feeling like if there's a slight bit of otherness, if there's a slight deviation from what you're actually supposed to be, whether you're not macho enough, whether you're not, going the straight and narrow, whatever, you want to call it, there is this feeling of failure, of shame, of perhaps like that keeps affirming these types of curses, or these types of feelings. But there's a tremendous sadness. There's passages that are really heartbreaking in the piece, but all through it all, though, I do feel that Christian continues to push against this sort of stuff, and I think that's what makes the writing so wonderful. But if there's something that we could go back to here, when you were going to school, you mentioned that there was, I believe it was in an interview recently that you did, where you're talking about how you started finding writers who sort of felt like they were in your wheelhouse that you hadn't experienced before. Can you share a little bit about what kind of writing really impacted you when you were discovering perhaps authors that you thought would be up your alley?
Yeah, yeah. And for sure, and I know like, well, now it's like he's a very controversial figure. But Junot Diaz was like super influential to me in terms of like that. And you like that his first collection, Drown, um, because it felt so. And like I have this professor who would fucking kind of hate me for saying this, but like it just felt so relatable, and like and that like relatability really felt like a deeper kind of connection where um I like I guess like I hear this a lot, and it never really resonated for me until like having read this, of like feeling seen, like feeling seen, and in this form that felt to me like it felt, like literature growing up, it just felt like this place where, like it was just for kind of like these like high upper class individuals
Hmm.
to like espouse about like their ennui and what's going on in their lives. And some of it like I do still really enjoy, and like I was made to like read a lot of God, I'm blanking on her name, but I've read so many of her novels and loved them. Jane
All
Austen.
right.
um and shit like that, which like on a certain level, like it kind of annoyed me, or in terms of just because this was always what was being assigned. And then, seeing the possibility, or like like, oh yeah, obviously like all life is like worthy of literature, and people have been doing that, I just wasn't aware of it. And so someone like Junot Diaz, like it really opened like my like what I thought literature was capable of, what I could
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And so for sure, like writers like him, Justin Torres, Sandra Cisneros, for sure. And I like a little more recently, I guess, Julian Delgado Lopera, Fiebre Tropical. I really fucking loved. Um, a lot, yeah, and I guess it goes beyond like kind of ethnic backgrounds, but that for sure was like, because I just didn't grow up, and like I just didn't really see that reflected, and so a lot of these Latin um writers were like the really big influences on me, in terms of like just also just in terms of just inspiring me of like, oh shit, like I could maybe also do this
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. One of the things that I feel as palpable here is how you have been able to I don't want to say transpose, but illustrate the world that let's say Stockton, right, as a canvas for the story is very specific, and I'm not from Stockton. I don't know, the experiences, but it is vivid to me. It is very specific. And so I'm curious, as you were creating your plan of attack here, it's like, how do you adapt the things that you know about the novels that you read, and where, maybe at some point in time you were saying, well, can you write about Stockton in the same way that Jane Austen wrote about, the place where she was? It's like, do you feel that you were sort of looking for inspiration in terms of structuring or setting up the world of Stockton through these novels that inspired you? Like, or maybe you can point to an example of how you were able to learn something from these novels that helped you bring Stockton to this literary form.
Yeah, I guess that for sure was like one of the more kind of difficult things, the things that I was like working on later in revision, and felt hard for me, I guess. And in terms of, and what feels to me also that I like, I at least something that I notice in other like literary fiction novels, where because it's like so kind of tied to reality, there's a different kind of world building that you have to do, or like that the way it has to kind of work in relation to the narrative. And I guess all those kinds of novels that I mentioned, what like really stood out to me is just the kind of sense that like you get it, you get a sense of place through, I mean, well, yeah, like obviously the interiority of the characters, but it's like what like they're observing, how they're responding to their environment, and that felt just like so true. And like the kind of the way in for myself is just like, and especially like, and like the younger the character is, it's looking at, well, like wanting to survive, like and you, so you have to adapt, and you have to always be aware of like the present dangers. And like, yeah, and even the like the adolescent sections, which to me were a place of like kind of levity and like having fun for the most part. They're like Christian and like his friends, they're still aware of like where they're at, and it's like you can't just like like fuck around and pretend that you're, like in Berkeley or Irvine. Like this is Stockton. Like you might get fucking shot. And so you have to be aware of that. And yeah, so I guess like that to me felt like the kind of truth to like what it was like for me growing up, and what I wanted to say about like, well, like this is my Stockton, like and which feels in that way like different to like Anthony So, After Parties, who like also wrote like very beautifully about Stockton. But yeah, and like, and it felt, what felt different to me is just that, like, yeah, growing up, I just was so aware of danger and where danger was, and needing to be in that kind of way also like responsible for my own safety. um and and this idea, which gets talked about a little bit in like the adolescent section, but like how, like I get it, and like I don't advocate for victim blaming, but it's also in terms of like, as a some like someone who grows up in those environments, you have to tell yourself certain narratives in order to not go crazy with like the idea that like you're not capable of providing your own safety. And so like telling yourself like, like this person got shot because they went down that street when they know they shouldn't have, or like you don't, or even in terms of like kind of minor things that don't get brought up in the not, but like uh I remember like talking about a poet, talking to a poet who had come to Stockton, and gone gotten all of their things stolen out of their car. And it's like, well, you like left everything visible. Like, what did you expect? And and yeah, that's not like the most like mature response, but to me, like in terms of there's just that reality of like it fucking sucks, but like you have to be aware of that reality of like some people are always gonna be, or not always, but a lot of the time they're gonna be looking for opportunity and for
Yeah. It's
thinking of you as like a risk assessment.
like accepting the relationship between you and your environment, even though you really wish that it was different or that you could sanitize
Yeah,
it in some way. It's like it's just it's just a fucking hard place to be in, so you got to be careful,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because I mean, I guess that's the peril, right? If you were to transpose it into a literary setting, there is that temptation to sort of whitewash it in a way or make it more palatable, and things like that. But it never feels false as I read it. It just doesn't seem like there's a wrong note there in terms of what the place actually is. So I thought that came across really vividly. One of the great things that I love about this is the language, the dialogue. Um, I I love hearing Spanish that I recognize, Spanish that I heard in my house growing up, with that kind of I don't know, intensity, which I thought you captured really well. So maybe we can talk a bit about how you have to strike a balance here, because how much is too much Spanish? How much is too much, lingo that might sort of keep certain readers at arm's length? Is that something that's even worth thinking about as you're writing? Or what is the responsibility there for yourself to get it right? Or what kind of barometers do you use for that? Because language was just wonderful to read.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, well, like I guess like a couple things in terms of like a barometer, like the biggest one, which was just so eye-opening and liberating, was like Fiebre Tropical. That novel, like I had never read, yeah, and because like before that novel, I had never really read anything that when it kind of did like English and like Spanish, the Spanish was always like pretty sparse, and um and even then sometimes it would be like right after it like directly translated. Um and that novel like didn't do that, and it would have kind of long passages where it was like and there would be like a lot of Spanish. Um but it was also, yeah, in terms of like, well, someone who speaks the language, who can read the language, it was also so fun to be like, oh shit, like you can do this in literature, and literature that's in like the English language, but that also has all of these connections to the Spanish language. And so I guess like for sure, like one of the things was just like wanting to connect to that, like to something that felt so central to Christian's identity, how Christian understands himself, to how I like understand myself and what I want to do as like a writer in terms of my own kind of political ideas around what like you can do in literature. Um, so yeah, so there was that, and like again, yeah, Fiebre Tropical is a barometer, and also for myself, and yeah, like, and I didn't really think so much about like, is this too much or too little Spanish while I was writing it. It was only in like deep revision that I really sat down and really wanted to like respect that too, and like I also wasn't interested in kind of I guess I didn't want to add or like include Spanish to kind of not include other people. Like that wasn't my intention at all. And so and so even though like I didn't want to directly translate it right after, I wanted it to be, I don't know, I guess just also because of um how influential movies were for me, and like how in movies and for so to me feels like so much longer it's been possible to, like, like people speak in another language, and you don't have subtitles or anything, but you just understand through context what, like, what's going on. And so just having a little bit of those kind of dialogue tags or those kinds of things where, like, through the action of the characters you understand contextually what has been said, or like, oh shit, like that must have not been so nice, or like, like you get a sense of like Christians in a bit of fear. And so I wanted it to be like understandable through contextual clues. But and I was like, I for sure is like I didn't want it to italicize the Spanish or do something weird to me. It also just would feel like such the wrong move in terms of who this character is, like in terms of their identity. Like they this is how they talks, and so that's how I want to represent it. Um, and I wanted to honor like that kind of person, that kind of identity. Um, and that's what like really kind of made me think about it.
Yeah, yeah. So as we kind of wrap up here, I just got a couple more questions to be mindful of your time, but I love talking about sort of the, I guess, the granular stuff of actually putting something of this size together. This is no easy task. You've been working on this for a very long time, and I'm curious of a moment or two when you felt like this just was not going to work. What was the worst time of working on this novel, and what was a moment of craft that allowed you to overcome that? Because I know that there were, I imagine there were countless situations where you just felt like you couldn't continue. Did you ever feel that way, or is the process more effortless for you than just what we hear in the romanticized version of what an author does?
Yeah. I wouldn't say there were so many, but there were for sure. There was like a kind of, I guess in a way it was kind of devastating. So originally, as I had conceived of this book, and it was like a short story collection, and it was a lot shorter. It was around like 55,000 words. And my my partner at the time, she was also is a writer. Kind of, yeah, well, like she really like kind of reflected how, and kind of pushed back on this idea that I had for this book project, that I wanted it to kind of be like this kind of punk album.
Mm,
Um, in terms of just having this like very kind of distinct and frenetic energy, and it to be kind of all kind of that, like in a way, like I didn't think so, but in a way kind of like one note in terms of just like
mm,
heavy intensity, and like that's the book. um but she really, and I'm really like thankful for her pushing back on that idea, and pushing me to like, well, to show a life more fully, to capture like more of the joy, the and even in terms of like not just like pain, but like, well, like different kinds of pain in terms of like sorrow, lament, um and not just like this kind of getting beaten down by the aunt and the curse and the father, and how he is
yeah.
kind of brutalizing at times. All of that. And so then, like, but it was just, it for sure was like, fuck, well, I thought I was done. I thought I was done, and now I'm having to do all this work of like reconceptualizing what the book actually is or should be, or in terms of like what do I really want to honor. And and that was like maybe like 5 or 6 years into writing this book. And then having to kind of shift my ideas about all of what should be captured by the what then became a novel. Um, but yeah, like in terms of like feeling like I had kind of was starting to see the crest over the mountain or something, and then realizing like, oh shit, like the peak is actually like a lot further away. Um, so and that like I guess like there was a lot of fear of like, will I be able to do this? But then as I was like actually writing it actually ended up being in some ways difficult, but it was also like a lot of like, well, that's where like a lot of the fun came and like a lot of the joy of like getting to play around with, like just trying to show all of the characters a little bit more, um, playing with form more, uh, changing the structure of the stories, like the biggest chapter in the whole novel being like a losing game, a loser's game. I forget what I changed it to because I've changed that title multiple times. Um, but that one, like it was half the size, and then was told by like my editor at the time to like to change it and like yeah, like and all of these changes like they were at once kind of scarier in terms of daunting of like, man, can I do this? But once like I was like sitting down and actually doing the work of writing it, it just was like a lot of fun, and I'm like thankful for having people push back on my ideas. And yeah, yeah.
Uh, so, last question here. I try to capture a sense of how you make it through the day as an author, as a creative person in this day and age that is very much against the creative process because we know this takes time. So I'm curious, how do you create sustainability in your life? Maybe not just as an artist, but as a human being. Things that keep you going, that keep the nourishment coming in your life. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, definitely like routine. Like routine is like a big thing. And so right now that's like I recently got into cycling. My family got me like this gravel bike. And so like so I've been like biking a lot, like cycling around Stockton, going like through the levees and around the Delta. Um that's been a big thing to kind of settle me down, like get some just like I guess working some of the kind of anxious, like I'm a pretty anxious person, and so just like having that kind of outlet is like very necessary. um I I'm also like I've always been, and like my first kind of art love, I don't know how to exactly phrase it, but have like has been movies, and so like I try to watch a lot of movies. I find those also pretty inspiring, in terms of like just like getting me into a mode where I want like, and I feel excited to write. um so always like just looking at like trailers, looking at like things that I've missed, classics, and seeing like what I'm gonna watch next. That's I would say also a pretty big one. um and just I don't I I guess I don't really, I've never really thought of myself as someone who meditates, and I don't really in like the most kind of formal sense, but I have started, and I've done this like I guess throughout like my writing journey, which is just like kind of doing anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes of free, like kind of free writing. But it's it's not even really like about like thinking anything like craft related or anything that I think I'm gonna like write into. It's really just kind of in a sense like a kind of diary of just like trying to get some of the thoughts that I've been thinking now onto a page. And that like I don't know, I guess it's a kind of self therapy that like I feel is very, very necessary in order to not go crazy. Um And yeah, I think those are like the kind of three big things that like keep me centered and keep me like wanting to keep working on the writing.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's a beautifully uplifting note to wrap it up on. But AM, I want to thank you so much for your time again, for chatting with me for a little bit, but also for your wonderful writing. This is really intense and beautiful work that I really enjoyed reading, and I hope that we get to catch up down the road, in the future when you keep working on that next one. But I'm probably also going to try to track down your recommendations for movies because I'm always on the lookout for some things. But again, thank you so much for your time and for the awesome work that you're doing. So I wish you all the best and congratulations because it's still new, still a new release. So yeah, congrats on this amazing piece of writing.
Oh, thank you so much. And this was really fucking nice. And yeah, well, I'll be listening to the podcast. I really did enjoy. I really enjoyed the conversations that I've gotten to listen to.
Oh, well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. But I'll let you enjoy your Sunday. And again, I hope that we get to catch up down the road. But keep doing your awesome work. And I'll be in touch real soon on the internet with an episode for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.